Hello, I did my first paper on the language community of Okinawan, and my second paper has to do with the language revitalization of Okinawan. Okay, so the history of Okinawa. Okinawa has been strongly affected by overseas influences, unlike anywhere else in Japan. In the 12th through the 15th centuries, the original Ryukyu kingdom developed due to trade with Asian countries and built the original cultures. Before World War II, in the 19th century, Ryukyu followed Japan on the path to becoming a modern country and became part of the nation building of Japan as Okinawa Prefecture. After World War II, when the Japanese surrendered in 1945, Okinawa was placed under American Army rule for over 27 years. In the next slide, I believe I have a map of Okinawa, so I'll show you that, but it lies at the southwest tip of Japanese archipelago and consists of many islands, as you will see. And in 1998, the population of Okinawa was 1.31 million, and all are endangered and are spoken by about 155,000 people, most of whom are elderly. Young Ryukyuans tend to speak Japanese with Ryukyu accents, and I apologize now for my pronunciations because I have no idea how to pronounce anything, so I'm just going off of what I believe that it is. And yeah, so this is the map of Okinawa. So this is Japan, and then the Ryukyu Islands are right here. And so this is where all of Okinawa resides. Sorry, I'm still sick. So overview of the language. The Ryukyuan language is classified as an independent language because of the uniqueness of its remote relationships in morphological, phonological, and lexical aspects. Within the Ryukyuan language, the Okinawan language itself is comprised of many dialects and subdialects from village to village. Though considered by the Japanese as speaking a dialect, the Ryukyuans speak separate languages such as Okinawan, also known as, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, and a few others that are listed here on the screen. And they're all part of the Japanic language family, to which the Japanese language also belongs. And there are 6 of these languages that UNESCO considers or recognizes as endangered. And Japanese and the Ryukyuan languages spring from a common parent language dating back 1,300 years ago. And the Okinawan languages are being replaced by Standard Japanese as a result of the Japanization of Okinawan, which started with the annexation of the Ryukyu Kingdom in 1879. Okay, so an overview continued. The language was discouraged by language policy of Japanese government when the Ryukyu Kingdom was forced to end. And since then, the numbers of native Okinawan language speakers have been gradually decreasing. And as well, Okinawan language varies depending on islands and areas. Sorry, this is out of the way. Okay. Okay, so to bring in what we learned in this class and a few of our readings, I just pulled out a little quote, some of like 3 quotes that I used in my paper. So in our Anderson text, most linguists estimate that the next 100 years will lead to the loss of 50 to 90% of the world's language. And in our other reading in Ahern's, what is it like to speak a language with 10 or fewer speakers? It means feeling isolated and having very few opportunities to speak one's language. And I thought this quote was very important because later on in a few more slides and in my paper, I researched a particular guy who teaches Okinawan, and his reasoning for specifically teaching his language is because he was feeling isolated, and it was a part of his identity. And if he felt as if, though, if he wasn't going to teach this, then he didn't know who he was. And then the last quote, Ahern again on the same page, feeling invisible, surrounded by speakers of a much larger, much more dominant language who do not even acknowledge the existence of other languages. And this is important again, through my research with the guy, it's in the Japan Times, and he's a professor, same guy. He felt this way a lot through growing up and even to this day. And he even, those who are Okinawan, they question him. It's like, why are you speaking this language? We don't even speak it. And so he just feels isolated to them, which is why he is doing his research. Okay, the importance of revitalizing Okinawan language. In Okinawa's case, according to UNESCO, which I talked about before, all Ryukyuan languages and the cultures expressed through these languages are on course for extinction by 2050, which isn't really that far away if you look at it. And put simply, communities are bound by the borders of their languages because communication is required for sharing the same set of values, ideas, stories, humor, proverbs, collective memories, and other experiences that give rise to identities. In other words, distinct languages give rise to distinct identities. Okay, so then, how is the Okinawan language surviving? I put a lot of research into this, and this is the guy, Byron Fia, who I was talking about before, and he's pretty cool. He has a few articles online and about his teachings and how he wants to revitalize this language. So he teaches an Okinawan language, which, again, I cannot pronounce that. But a few of the quotes that I pulled out from a few of his articles were he claims that he does not speak a dialect, which many Japanese people associate Okinawan as being a dialect of Japanese. But he speaks an independent language. And then he says, I don't understand why the legitimacy of an Okinawan language is denied even by Okinawans. Not only at the heart of Okinawa's unique culture, but also of their identity. And he says this quote along with how important it is to him that Okinawa is revitalized, because to him it is unique and it is his identity, and so he wants to move this on to others. And then in another article about revitalizing Okinawa, sorry, my dog's popping in. The ideal would be for older people who speak the endangered language to teach the younger kids the language, as well as for people to research their own community and create a community-based dictionary in the interest of preservation. And I pulled this out because I thought it was very important on why exactly it is important to keep a language, not just Okinawan, of course, but I just thought this was a unique quote to pull out, and I never really thought of it as people coming together in their own communities and creating community-based dictionary. Like, I don't know, I just thought that was pretty cool, so I pulled that out. Okay, so basically, going back, since its reversion in 1972, Okinawa has tried hard to assimilate into mainstream Japanese society, including discarding its own language, which many see as inferior. As a result, only a relatively small number of people, mainly the older people, can speak the Okinawan language fluently. The most important measure of language revitalization is that of passing the retreating language onto younger generations, which is true among many endangered languages, as we can see through, I'm sure, everyone else's presentations if they're doing language revitalization. And then in conclusion, let's move this again. This decision to retain a language must come from that community on the basis of community self-esteem and not be decreed by linguistic imposition, however well-meaning. And this is all taking from my paper, my second paper that I wrote. And the second is economics. If there is economic motivation to retain a language, then the community will, likely as not, decide on this. And the third reasoning, and most important, is the younger generations. If the young people are motivated to develop their own culture in the language, then they are likely to do so. And finally, language is an important part of any society because it enables people to communicate and express themselves. When a language dies out, future generations lose a vital part of the culture that is necessary to completely understand it. So there's that, and these are my works that I use for this presentation and all that I use for my second paper. So I look forward to hearing what everyone has to say. Okay. Good night.